Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for Coffee with Clint, a Father's Day Roundtable. We have decided to gather some fathers in our community to talk about the importance of fatherhood, and there's a couple other issues that we're going to dive into. But I just want to say good morning and thank you to everyone who is following the social distance guidelines. And I am so proud of our community because we are working towards a new normal, but we are conquering. So I just want to say good morning to everyone. If you're joining us via video chat, please use the respective comment feature to leave your comments, questions, or concerns. I'm so looking forward to them. Tomorrow is Father's Day, so Team Bryant decided to gather some of the fathers in our community to celebrate fatherhood. In my opinion, present and well accounted for fathers are critical to the progression of a stable community. We know that mothers are saviors. I myself was raised by a single mom, yet fathers should be present. So we decided to take some time today to celebrate our fathers and hopefully inspire some young men about the beauty of caring for other individuals, for another person. So I just want to thank you guys for joining us. And I would like to leave this conversation having developed a strong set of priorities and really listening to fathers in our community and what they would like to see for the future of the 95th District. And please know that Clint Bryant's campaign is your campaign. Also, please, during our conversation, feel free to check out my top priorities at clintbryant.com. And for our Spanish-speaking population, you can go to es.clintbryant.com, and our website is translated in Spanish. I am so pleased today to be joined by our esteemed panelists. So first on our panel today is Dr. Mitt Foley. Dr. Foley, how are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Clint. I'm well. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. And I have to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That is a major, major accomplishment. I know you have been busy with the district and everything that's going on between family, and it's a lot to juggle, but you are doing a phenomenal job. I remember little Mitt from over at Hanley and our time there. So it's just, it's great to have you on the panel today. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Next on our panel is Markeen Baker. Markeen, I grew up with Markeen. He was a good friend growing up. Lived around the corner, over on Home Street, right by Malleable Iron, and we ran into each other a few years ago. We had lost touch, and then I seen him, and then I seen his beautiful family, and I was like, "We're having a Father's Day conversation." Markeen Baker is the one we definitely have got to have on our panel. So thank you so much, and I love your live videos with your family. Whether you're on a walk or just around the house, man, it's just a beautiful thing to see. It always makes me smile. So thanks so much for joining us today, man.
No problem, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then also on our panel today is Mr. Curtis Scott and Jared Scott. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I had a chance to look at your bio, Mr. Scott. Oh my goodness, what an amazing! I don't even know how you have time to do everything that you do, but you definitely put in time, whether it's counseling, some newer families, or your work previously as a part-time firefighter. Love our firefighters, and then your work in the trades as well, man. So I'm just so thankful for you guys both to be joining us today. So rounding on our panel, we have Curtis Scott and Jared Scott.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Yes. Well, let's dive in, guys. I want to. We do have another panelist who'll probably be joining us in a few minutes, but I don't want to wait any longer. Let's just dive into our conversation. First, please give us your dad profile. How old are your little ones, and how many? Let's start with Dr. Foley.
I have two boys. I have a 15-year-old, and my youngest is 12 years old. So I got one getting ready to start driver's training. Asking for the car keys. And I got one I'm just trying to keep off for Fortnite for an extended period of time.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Foley. Let's go to Curtis. Mr. Scott.
I have one son, and he was born on Father's Day.
Oh, wow.
27 years ago. So this is his birthday, and he spent it at home with us. He lives in Houston, but he wanted to shelter in place with his mom and dad. So that's just a blessing.
Yes, that is beautiful. Oh, wow, that is great. Let's go to Marquine.
I have two. I have a 7-year-old son, and I have a 2-year-old daughter who is turning 22.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, I wanted to ask you guys. Oh, we have Adam. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Adam. Adam Gonzalez. I think many of you know he's really active, very active in our community, from his work with the Saginaw County Veterans Plaza to working at the VA, his work with the Jesus Forum. Thank you so much for joining us, Adam. I wanted to ask you, the first question I had for our panel today was for our fathers to give us their dad profile. How old are your little ones, or not so little ones, and how many?
Well, I have 5 sons. My youngest is 21, and he just had a baby girl about, in March. So when this pandemic happened, it's killing me that I cannot see my granddaughter. But 2 months before that, my stepson, Anthony, who I raised, I call him my son, even though he's my stepson, he had a baby boy. So I haven't been able to see either one of my grandchildren. It's killing me. They're beautiful. So I have Marcus, I have Michael. Michael is 23. Elias is 24. Anthony, oh my God, I'm getting old. I'm getting dementia just thinking about how old. Look at all the ages. Anthony, he is, he's gonna kick me in my butt for this. I think 30. And then my son Adam, he is 32. Adam is in the United States Air Force, serving our country over in Joint Air Force Base, Maryland. Actually, we're Andrews Air Force Base, where they have Air Force One at. That's the base he is at. So I have 5 sons.
Wow. Be sure to thank him for his service. We definitely appreciate that. I know how close to your heart veterans issues are. So, yeah, definitely forward our thanks to him for his service to our country, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I wanted to ask a question of our panel. If you had to express fatherhood in only 3 words, what words would you use? Let's go to Mr. Scott.
Well, 3 words. Expect the unexpected.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Let's go to Marquine.
I would say really pretty much the same thing. Yeah, expect the unexpected, because it's like it's from day to day, week to week. It's always changing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Great. Let's go to Dr. Foley.
3 words. I would say blessing, gosh, 3 words. I would say blessing, joy, and incredible.
That's powerful. Adam, give me 3 words that you would use to describe fatherhood.
Well, I always tell my kids, always be humble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, never put yourself above anybody, because at any given moment you can, and Clint, you know my backstory, you can be knocked down by God, and always humble yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you, dads. I appreciate that. Another question, and I want to encourage all of our listeners, if you have questions of me or our panel, go ahead and put those comments, questions, concerns in the chat feature below, and we will be sure to get to them. One of the questions that I had was deciding where to raise your family and children. It's such an important decision. So why did you decide to stay in Saginaw? Let's go with Dr. Foley.
Clint, when I got to Saginaw, when I graduated from Michigan State, I had a number of options to go into teaching. I mean, I was, at the time, teachers were, there were jobs everywhere. And I interviewed in a lot of places. I wanted to kind of stay close to home, but not too close. And I came up and I interviewed with the Saginaw Public School District. And then I kind of went and visited some of the schools. Well, two of the schools. I visited Arthur Hill and I visited Saginaw High School. And when I went over to Saginaw High and I started to interact with, there were a bunch of kids, Otis Washington and a bunch of kids out there playing football. And I just got out of my car and just started chopping it up with some of them. And I honestly felt like I was at home. I knew immediately that this was the place that I was going to stay. And the kids were absolutely wonderful. It reminded me of where I grew up. I grew up in Detroit. And so having that opportunity to just engage and talk to a few of the students, I knew Saginaw was going to be a great place for me. I found that it was a great place to raise kids. I've been really, really blessed. Saginaw has provided me with tremendous opportunities, and I'm so thankful and really grateful of those opportunities. And I was able to stay kind of close to home, maybe 45 minutes, an hour away from home. So I can still, get to my mom who's deceased now, but I was able to get home when I needed to, still go see my brothers. They live down at Ypsilanti and in the Detroit area. So Saginaw, I found Saginaw has provided me with a tremendous amount of opportunities. The people here, Clint, are just like family, man. It's just been wonderful. It's been a great experience for me. And so, raising kids here, we have a lot of opportunities. We have good friends, a lot of good families that we're able to hang out with and engage with. So Saginaw has been a great place for us to raise our kids.
Let's go to Adam.
I actually moved from Saginaw to Holland, Michigan back in '93 after I got out of the Marine Corps. And, I couldn't find work. I've been working. If some of you guys are familiar with my grandfather, he sold produce. He was known as the watermelon man. So he had stations set up all over. And I began working when I was 14. So getting out of the military, not be able to find a decent job, I moved to Holland, Michigan, started a family down there. My son Adam actually moved back with his mother here in Saginaw. Went on to excel in everything, sports, track. He got into wrestling, he got into boxing, you name it. It was just something to keep him going, keep him motivated. The scholastics, the athletics that Saginaw offers is second to none. I've always encouraged everybody, hey, you hear all this bad stuff about Saginaw, but have you actually been there? You read all this, no. You're seeing what you see, which is false. There's so much beautiful stuff going on right here. So when Adam came back, I was proud of him. He went to the military and has never looked back. And he's always telling people, yep, I'm from Saginaw. It's not Sag nasty. It's Saginaw awesome. So I encourage you. It's beautiful here. Saginaw is my home. I was born and raised. I'll never move away again. I do what I can for Saginaw community, Great Lakes Bay Area. And me and my wife, Carmen, we love it here. We'll never move out this place. So yeah, we've been blessed, very blessed and fortunate.
Wonderful. All right, let's go to our BB Knight, Mr. Scott.
Well, I was born on a Genesee Street Bridge on the front seat of a '53 Buick. What? And I stayed here until 1983. Moved to New Jersey, one of the most populated states in the country, and got married. When my son was about 7 years old, we had him in private schools that were overpopulated, and he wasn't getting the teaching we really wanted him to get. And at the same time, my dad was sick. So we decided to move back to Saginaw because I knew instead of paying, $300 to $500 a month to put him in an overcrowded school, he could go to Handley for just the taxes that I was paying with my mortgage. He could go to SASA. He could go to Heritage. And he said, he's right here. He said that schooling prepared him for University of Kentucky. So that's the reason I really moved back to Saginaw, because I knew that it was a better quality of life, better education for my son, and I could be close to my dad. He passed away, but I'm just so thankful that I had the time to spend with him that I did.
Let's get you in on this, Jared. Can you give us some of the things that you were able to participate in? Some of the things that you really value about our Saginaw community?
Yeah, most definitely. So coming into Saginaw, the adjustment period was, coming from the East Coast to a more Midwest town, a little bit slower. I kind of had a little bit of an accent. So, I got teased a little bit by by my classmates at first. And being an only child, I had to just adjust, right? I had to make friends. So it was a period of just exploring everything new, making new friends. It made me get out of my comfort zone. We lived in some different parts of town, and I just got a diverse experience around Saginaw, met a lot of awesome people. I got to get introduced to sports, team sports here. I explored like my musical interests here. I was a part of a lot of programs scholastically. So the Saginaw Community Foundation actually gave me scholarships that, covered like the first half of my first year in college. Saginaw Arts and Sciences Academy was an awesome place to go, where I got to meet, kids who were going half day to Arthur Hill, Saginaw High, just all different schools around. So getting to be around that diversity was awesome for me. So I love Saginaw. There's a lot of great things going on here. It's a small town feel. It's a great place to grow up. It's not all about what you hear, like, on the news, as well. So, it was great growing up here, and I always come back home. So, I love it here.
That's great. Thank you, Jared. Let's go to Marquine. Why Saginaw?
So shortly after I graduated, I went to Connecticut for culinary arts, and after that, I had an externship where I came back to Lansing. Once I got back to Lansing, January 30th, 2008, I shipped off for basic training for the Army Reserves. While my time there in the Army, I was able to see different parts of the country, and every place that I went to, there's no better feeling than being home. Being here in Saginaw. And I'm a Saginaw guy through and through. I went to Jesse Lemons Elementary, South Middle School, graduated 2006 from Arthur Hill, got my associates from Delta, got my bachelor's in social work from Saginaw Valley. So I'm a Saginaw guy through and through. Coming from growing up in Saginaw, I was exposed to a lot of great things. And those things, there is a lot of stuff going on now. But there was much more back then, growing up. And I know the men that are on the panel can speak more to that than what I can. And so me personally, I hate when people say that there's nothing in Saginaw, because I know where Saginaw comes from. And so I have devoted my time, energy, and focus to reviving some things that were going on in Saginaw. And so my getting to my choice to keep my family here is I want to show my children, what hard work looks like, and how you can create something where people say that there's nothing at. When you go to other places, like big places like Atlanta or New York or California, many things are already established, and so you don't have to necessarily work as hard. But when you come to a place where there's a void at, it's going to take a lot of sweat equity to get it there. And so I want to show my children, what it takes, the true effort it takes to get something in place, and to not only get it in place, but to get it moving as well.
Very good. Thank you. I have another question that's come in, and it is, what is the best advice about fatherhood given to you before your children were born? Let's start with Adam. What's the best piece of advice that you were given?
Well, you know what, man? My mom is a very, very strong woman. You know, she's the most loving woman you ever want to meet today. Growing up, hey, we were old school, man. So it's just one of them deals. And I kind of tell my kids to this day, if you think it's wrong, it probably is. If you think you're going to get in trouble, you probably will. So if you think about it and you just listen to those words, you're like, it makes sense. Now, did I listen to it? No, because our peer pressure, doing this, doing that, I had to be silly, had to be funny. So, you know, I still call her Big Mama. When Big Mama got in my, yes.
Yeah.
You know, I love the fact that I still have my mother.
Amen.
And some of us, you know, we don't have our mother or our father right now. And with the holidays coming up, with everything coming up, I'm blessed and thankful to have my mom in my life. But the advice was, you know, always do right. And I played sports. I was in a folkloric dance group. I joined the military. I just wanted to do things and make them proud. And to this day, I think that's why I do what I do, and why me and you have this huge connection, because we just do things nobody wants to do. Well, I ain't got time for that. Make time. So,
yeah.
The best piece of advice was, you know, if you think you're gonna get in trouble, you probably will.
That's good. Let's go to Dr. Foley. What was the best advice that you were given before your children were born?
The best advice I was given, Clint, was to be present with your child, to spend time with your child. And that's been real important for me, because I grew up, like many on the panel, I grew up without a father. You know, I was raised by a single mother. And so, you know, I missed out on that experience of what that was like, of spending time, actual time with a father, just engaging in activities, having those talks. And so I think it's really important to actually be present and actually to spend quality time with your children. And so that was given to me, and that was real important. And that's something I try and do. And I think in some cases, when you don't have a father, sometimes you kind of overdo it a little bit, you know, just trying to make up for what you didn't have in some kind of way. But I really think spending that quality time with your child, you know, reading with your child, eating dinner with your child, you know, building things with your child, listening to your child, just being actually present with your child. So that was some of the best advice that I.
Thank you, Dr. Foley. That's beautiful. Let's go to Mr. Scott. What was the best piece of advice that you were given before Jared was born?
Well, it was advice that my mom, she's over 90 years old, eight children. I'm number 7. But her advice to me was, I'm going to raise you so that somebody else will love you besides me. And so I took that and I did that for my son. And me and my wife, we raised our son so that somebody else would love him besides us. And because we want to present our best to the world. And if you don't sow into your child where someone else can appreciate them, the values, the Bible says in Proverbs, train up in the child the way that they should go, not the way you want them to go. It's what they're uniquely designed for. And as a parent, you have to see that ahead of time. And so my mom said, I want to raise you so that somebody else will love you besides me.
Man, I love this. I love this discussion we're having. Marquine, what was the best advice you were given?
I got 2, if I can. The first one was, your child is born with a placenta, not a manual. There's a lot of fear that is tied to fatherhood, and that was what was given to me. You know what I mean? You do what you feel as though is best, and you're gonna make mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes. And the second one comes by way of my father. I come from a blended family, and not all my brothers and sisters stayed in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
And so my father would always tell us, and he actually tells me to this day, he said, if you can, make sure you keep all your children in the same house.
Mm.
Because I've seen the struggles he went through with, you know, getting my siblings and stuff
Mm.
like that. So he always said, he'll say it to this day, make sure you keep all your children, if you can, make sure you keep all your children in the same house.
Mm. Wow, that's great. I think one of the most difficult things about being a parent is being required to prepare your child for a brutal world. We, of course, are experiencing a very challenging time, not only in our community, but in our country, in our world. And you all have children of different ages. So how are you managing explaining what is happening in the world today? Because I know it's a much different world from when I was growing up, probably some of you. So how are you explaining that to your children at different ages? Let's go to Mr. Scott.
Well, because we raised Jared to be respectful, have manners, he's not going to provoke a situation. And that's really 80% of the issue. When you add to the fire, you add to the fuel. You know, a kind word turns away wrath.
Mm-hmm.
So we raised Jared so that he would not escalate the situation. And then we just explained to him, we still have to explain to him, okay, now you have to make sure all your paperwork is correct.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure you have everything you need. And then you just have to continue to be respectful, even in a situation that you know is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a time to speak up for yourself, and it's a time that you should remain silent.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in battle, sometimes it's not a time to fight, especially with the police and with people saying derogatory things. You have to have peace in the situation, and that starts at home. If you have peace at home, you can control yourself better out in the streets. So we try to create an environment for him that he could think without acting first.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to Adam. Excuse me.
Well, I'm going to go back to 2000. February 2000, I was struck by a car on purpose, and life-changing experience. With my children being so young, they were in that mentality, okay, you know, we're Mexican, we're Hispanic, you know, police don't like us, blah, blah, blah. Well, I had to change my kids' minds because I told them, hey, you know what? Without the police, they never would have caught the young lady who struck me with the car.
Mm.
So that's what you got to look at. I said, all your friends are telling you the police are bad. They're not bad. Now we got this situation where there's so much on the media showing the cops doing these things. And yes, it is true, but not all police officers are like that. It's a very, very small percentage of law enforcement that are doing this, because a lot of my good friends, great friends, are police officers. Even at the Saginaw VA, I mean, I go to bat for these guys. If there's ever something they need, I'll put my name on the line for them, because I know they'll be there to protect me and our other veterans at the hospital. So the perception that all police officers are evil and bad, no, I had to let my kids know that from the very, very beginning. And then now, 2020, they're seeing all this and they remember, well, yeah, not all police officers are doing this, right, Dad? I said, no, it's just a select few. Whatever they're going through could have some PTSD, could have anger issues. It's not right. So we need to get better training for these police officers. If they would reach out and raise their hand, say, you know what, I'm having some issues, I need some counseling, maybe that'll stop what is going on. But like I said, right now with the police doing what they're doing, it's not every single police officer that's doing it. And that's what we gotta let everybody know. So the media, they're out showing all the bad they're doing. We got police officers here in Saginaw, and I cannot remember the gentleman's name. A young African-American police officer, whenever they have the light up of the city, he's out dancing with the kids. And yes. And that's what we got to see. That's what we got to showcase when they do stuff like this. Not the bad stuff. That's what the media wants to glamorize and show. But when a young officer, African-American, a police officer of color that's out there doing stuff that's positive for the kids, that's what we need to see more of, in my opinion. Yeah, so with everything going on right now, my kids already know it's not every single police officer that's bad. It's just that select small people.
It's good. That's a conversation that has to be had, especially for men of color and our boys of color growing up. Dr. Foley.
Yes, I think everybody on this panel, has that the painful necessity of having that talk with your child, that provides specific guidance that enables them to know the right steps that they need to take, or that they need to try to take to stay safe. And we try and let our kids know, it's not fair they have to learn these lessons, because we started these conversations when they were even younger, but we're trying to teach them so later on they'll be safe. But at our kids' age right now, they think more abstractly about race, things like racism. And so what we've done is we've tried to make good use of movies and documentaries to teach them about the history of discrimination. Movies like, The Great Debaters and Just Mercy, The Hate You Give, Selma, and I think families need to know that they can't shield their children. All of these kids have cell phones. They all watch the news, so they can't shield them from these images and the things that they see and they're exposed to. But I think it's important to engage their children in conversations about racism and to use those events as a catalyst, and that includes white families as well. That they should engage their children in conversations about race and discrimination, bias, privilege, and use that as talking points and as a catalyst for change.
Powerful. Marquine, I know you got two little ones. How are you explaining to them what is going on? We grew up in the same neighborhood, so we know, and it's so different. So much is the same, but it's so different at the same time. So how are you explaining to your little ones, what is going on now?
I'm not, honestly. I believe that there's a time and a season for that. My son is 7 and my daughter is 2. I want my children to be children for as long as possible, and that's what my parents did a great job at. Is not necessarily hiding it from us, but just making sure that we were able to be in a child's place. So I'm me personally, I'm not. There will be a time where I will. For right now, I'm the example that they have, and so the things that I make sure that I govern myself accordingly to how I want them to be for right now. And so, in due time, we will have that conversation.
All right. Let's shift a little bit, because Adam was talking about mental health, and I think that's an important conversation to have. Oh, got Mr. Scott in there. We'll get right back to you, Mr. Scott. But I wanted to talk a little bit about mental health concerns. We know that postpartum depression for moms is something that many women struggle with. But we very rarely discuss mental health of our dads post-pregnancy. But did you struggle with anything like that in the first few days after birth? And just to dig a little bit deeper, do you have any advice about mental health and self-care for our fathers? Let's start with Dr. Foley.
I think for me, when my first was born, Honestly, I was reading all kinds of little books leading up to it, about fatherhood and things of that nature. There was a little bit of anxiety, but I think it's important to have a good group of peers around you that you can talk to, other men, mentors, other fathers. And I was really blessed to know a lot of other fathers. And I was able to tap into them and have conversations with them and kind of rely on them as kind of a support group. Many of those, many folks I still talk to and hang out with today, such as your Brian Pruitts and a whole host of folks. Officer, actually Chief Reggie Williams, a lot of folks who had kids and were kind of going through some things. So I think really not isolating yourself, having a nice peer group to support you. I think that's real important. And I think that it's an important question, Clint. I think in the Black community, especially, people don't talk a lot about mental health with Black men. There's some kind of stigma attached to that. But I think it's just important to have a good group of folks that you surround yourself with, whether you go golfing, whether you just have barbecues with, folks you could just get on the phone and chop it up with. I think that support group is really, really important for everyone. And just know that you're not alone. I know for me, growing up without a father, this was all new territory. Honestly, I feel like a lot of it I'm figuring out as I go along, and I hope that I get most of it right. And so I rely on a lot of folks, as Marquis indicated, being an example for his children. I look at other folks as kind of mentors. I kind of, how Marquis might be conducting himself. He's actually, other people are watching him and they're going to try and engage in those similar practices that are successful, and so I think it's important that we, look to others as models and that we just partner and communicate. That line of communication is important. I think Black men in particular also need to have conversations and talk about things that are challenging. And I think it's a good way to grow and develop over time. So that's what's helped me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Foley. I want to just repeat our previous question because I want to get the Scotts. I think this is a perfect question because you guys are together on our panel. And let me just repeat the question for you. One of the things I know that you have been tasked with being a parent is to prepare your child for a brutal world. With everything that's going on in our country, how are you guys, what kind of discussions are you guys having?
Well, I have a college student here that is very intellectual. We have very deep conversations. One thing when Jared was born, just to back up a little bit, I said in the beginning, expect the unexpected. It's some changes that affect you mentally. And when I see new fathers, I try to tell them, you got to pray for patience because this is different. This is different than the workplace. This is different than, the gym. This is different. And mentally, you go through changes whether you understand it or not. But the conversations that Jared and I have now, they're philosophical conversations. Jared is a great thinker. We talk about everything. What are some of the last things we talked about when we talked in the living room? What was the conversations about?
Yeah, we definitely talked. So I just wanted to kind of get your experiences growing up, like where you actually experienced racism. And one thing, a lot of the themes of our conversations, because we're Christians and our faith is a real, the biggest part of our life. So a lot of things tie back to our faith and lessons that it teaches us. So forgiveness is like a huge theme that a lot of no matter what the type of problem is, we kind of land back on topics of that. And so we talked about our experiences with racism, and my dad went all the way back to, when he was a kid. And a lot of times we don't hear about those, stories all the time, because as Black men, we kind of just suppress it because it's just the way that we're used to conducting life, being discriminated against and microaggressions and just kind of being in tense situations with officers or some of our, white peers or non-Black peers. So, we go into deep conversations about how that affects us, how we can understand why other people are, angry right now. And I guess the best role that we can play and just being the best person that we can to help, during these times. So a lot of it comes back to forgiveness and themes like that, and trying to be the most loving person that you can. And so,
yeah, because unforgiveness is like you drinking poison, hoping that the other person will die. It only hurts you. So that's what it goes back to. It goes back to, can you forgive? Because we're living in a climate where you're gonna be affected in a negative way in a lot of areas, but can you forgive? And that's really the basis for our faith.
I'm going to keep you guys on because I have another question that I wanted to get to you, Mr. Scott. How important do you think it is for a first-time father to seek mentorship? Did you have a father mentor, or is that something that you do for other fathers?
That's something that I do, but let me just say that every mistake that could have been made in life, I probably made it.
Oh.
So I'm not speaking from a point where, I was perfect at doing anything. I've made all the mistakes. But definitely, especially the first child, because see, it's when Jared, on my way to the hospital, I had lost my job. I had a supervisor that did not give me the call that I told him I may be getting, because my wife was in trouble. He didn't give me that call for about 3 hours. So I walked off that job before I put my hands on him.
Wow.
So I didn't have a job when Jared was born. And so now you get a brand new baby, and you're not used to a baby. You're not used to the crying, how much crying should be, what's excessive. And really, you're going into a mental place that you've never been. And yes, you need counseling. You do need counseling. And so when I see young fathers now, I let them know, look, this is what you really need to have patience. This is temporary. As bad as it ends, the not being able to sleep, all of these things. Why is the baby crying? You need help. And yes, that's what I do for couples now.
Wonderful. Let's get Marquine on this about mentorship.
Mentorship. I believe it's very important. It's important. I just think that learning by trial and error and experience is more powerful. But for the sake of your mental state, especially being a new father and a young father, I believe is very important. My son is autistic, and so I didn't know many other fathers who had children whom were autistic, and so I had to really learn on my own, where I got in the way of his development in the beginning because I didn't want to accept the fact that my son was delayed in a lot of areas in his life. I wanted the perfect child. I wanted the normal child, and I feel as though that my child wasn't normal. And so that was really a journey I had to go on by myself to really understand that my son is normal. My son is perfect. You know what I mean? And I had to accept, who he was, because I got in the way of him because he wasn't who I was. You know what I mean? Like my son, when we would drop him off at daycare, he would go to a table by himself and wouldn't want to play with nobody.
Mm.
And I was the type where I wanted to play with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I had to move out of my own way and really find my own way to make sure that my son was catered to in a way to assist him in becoming who he was and not who I was. So mentorship it's important. It's very important, and I believe it's a great resource. I just believe that, you know, that trial by error or trial by fire, and that own personal, in your own personal journey is what's really going to give you the best knowledge. You know what I mean? I'm a Bible guy myself, and one of my favorite ones says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." You know, it don't say run, skip, hop, or jump. It says to walk, because when you walk in your own personal journey and you pay attention to everything you go through, now you have the resources and the tools to help somebody else going through the same thing that you just went through.
That's powerful. That's powerful. That's good stuff, man. Thank you. Let's go to Adam, and then we'll go to Dr. Foley.
Yeah, I've been blessed, man, because growing up, I had incredible mentors that that recognized the potential in me. I had Mr. Rick Medina, who eventually became a supervisor at superintendent at Bridgeport Schools. One of my basketball coaches, Mr. Richard Menchaca, when I was in the Scotia Quetzal folkloric dance group, he looked out for me, and Bobby De Leon growing up, and Mr. Gilberto, I call him Sir Gilberto Guevara. These are the guys that seen something in me that I didn't see, and thank God they did, because it's very easy to stray off that path. I mean, peer pressure. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, I got some trouble. You know, I've been locked up for doing silly stuff, but I've always had these gentlemen look out for me. I'm also in the Big Brother Big Sister program. So my little brother Fabian, this kid is, he wrestles tutelage of Darren Wasp. They call it the Michigan Pit. This kid is amazing. He's wrestling kids older than him and heavier than him, because he's too good for the kids his age and size. And I says, you know, he understands he's losing more, but he also understands that he's getting this knowledge and this experience. So when he does get to high school or middle school and high school and starts wrestling, oh, he's gonna smoke everybody. His sister Violet, she's so good at wrestling that I mean, they got Olympic coaches. They're looking at these two, and my cousin Mark Gomez, their father, you know, he's like, you know, pandemic's going on. Guess what? They're still wrestling each other. They keep it going. They keep it going. Their schooling is up. I told him, "What do you need to be successful?" I don't need anything. Yeah, I just like hanging out. He's a kid. So what I've been doing with young Fabian is, when I have an event that I go to, like I took him to Mr. Jerome Buckley's Heart of the City when I had won an award. And I said, I want to expose you to things like this so you can meet politicians, councilmen, you know, city officials, law enforcement. Put him in them surroundings, in them circles, so that he's not afraid. So when he needs something, and he's going to need something, you know, growing up, he's going to have resources, he's going to have contacts. And I'm excited for the future of this young man. And I bring him to my house every now and then. Well, I haven't done it since the pandemic, but you know, he comes over, he goes, "Hey, you want me to do some yard work?" And yeah, let's do some yard work. So I always got food for him, and he likes to, you know, he's a kid, likes to play video games. He likes their dogs and cats we got. But to find a young man that I have some similar backgrounds, you know, sports was always a must in my household. And we relate. I mean, we laugh, we joke, and because of the Big Sister program, he's almost like a stepson to me. He's not just a little brother. I mean, we got this close relationship. And when we get done with all this, I'm actually going to call him, because I haven't talked to him for a minute, being that he is, you know, a kid, he likes to hang out, have fun, play. So when he has time, hey, text, what are you doing? You doing okay? Do you need anything? Mentorship is huge because we got so many kids, boys and girls, coming from single households. And that's one thing we really need to look at is how can we reach out to these kids that don't have a father, or the fathers that are raising their kids on their own. I got my nephew David. He's out in North Carolina. He says, "Yeah, I'll get a girlfriend eventually, but right now my focus is on my girls." So he's got beautiful, beautiful little girls. He works his butt off. He's a manager at a restaurant, and he literally works his hand and everything to the bone to support his kids. So one of the things I'd like to do and see when you do get elected, I'm claiming it, Clint. I'm claiming it. If we can get some kind of a boys and girls clubs, you know, maybe get the Civitan back open again, the Civitan Center over there on 6th Street. I mean, I used to play basketball over there, and beautiful facility. It's just sitting there. So we got to find a way to open it back up. Maybe we can get with Lamar Woodley and some other people, and you know, a place for kids to go. We got the First Ward Community Center, which I used to go play basketball over there. Yeah, I played a lot of basketball. First Ward Community Center, the Civitan Center, the Salvation Army. I mean, we got places to go that our kids don't know about. So we need to say, hey, you can't be bored. There's places to go, things to do. I got 4.5 acres. So when I lived in Holland, as a single father, you know, me and my ex-wife, we split up, and she's like, you know, I'm studying to be a nurse. She was working second shift. I was struck by a car, so I wasn't able to work. So I had the boys. I had all the neighborhood kids coming to my house. So I'm always cooking out, you know, playing sports with them, throwing a basketball, football, baseball, whatever. You know, they would always, hey, Big Adam, how you doing? Hey, Big Adam, you gonna cook out? Like, come on, let's go, let's do something. So I was that guy that kept the neighborhood kids in check. And this is a true story. So after the car accident, both my legs, thigh high cast, you know, wheelchair. Actually, I'm sitting in the wheelchair now. I still have it from 20 years ago. And the kids would ask, what happened? I didn't tell them I was struck by a car because I was being stupid at a bar. That's another story. I told them, no, I didn't look both ways crossing the street. And they were like, oh, they never thought about that. Oh, wow, Big Adam, you could have got killed. Yeah, but I didn't. I got injured. But it let them know that they need to look both ways crossing the street. So some good came out of this car accident. Those little kids have grown up. They're terrific young men now. One was Ricky Mata. He played baseball. He lived like 3 houses from us. Juan Figueroa lived a couple houses over, and I miss these guys. You know, they were like my little kids, my little brothers, my little cousins, and it is just beautiful. If you could find anybody, another young man was Justin Greathouse. He would come over. He was my son Anthony's best friend. He went down a scholarship, Oral Roberts University. He started doing fashion. He's making his own music. I mean, he's his own man. And he was like, having someone like me in his life, and he's African-American, just somewhere to hang out, something to do. Where I lived at in Holland, we had the Boys and Girls Club right at the end of our street. So there's always something for my little kids in Holland to do. Here in Saginaw, Clint, I really think we need to sit down and talk about opening up some places, getting some more things going. I mean, I grew up playing Little League Baseball at Hoyt Park. The fields there are beautiful. Wicks Park, I remember going to softball games for my uncles and cousins because they play on the Mexican Hispanic League over at Wicks Park. And now you look at it like, where's the park? I commend you for doing your cleanup that you did last year at certain places. When you were a city councilman, you made things happen that people didn't know about. And I commend you because I know you, Clint, you're a great person, great heart, mentorship, If there's any young man, if there's any parents out there, you don't have to be Hispanic to reach out to me. Hey, you know what? My son's having some issues, or my son's thinking of doing the college. You know, my wife, she works at Saginaw Valley in admissions. So people are like, man, what about scholarships? Hang on, let me get you in contact with Carmen. Or my cousin, Dr. Elsa Olvera, she's at Delta College. So there's ways, there's resources if they ask. So that's what we need. We need to get the kids, the parents to get involved and ask, reach out.
Thank you so much, Adam. I want to ask that question to Dr. Foley, just about mentorship. And do you think it's important that first-time fathers have a mentor?
First, I want to say that I agree. I can be really brief because I think Mr. Gonzalez really summed it up. I mean, but it is critical that young fathers have mentors, and for folks to step up and serve as mentors. I've talked, I've been in the district 23 years, Clinton, and I've had an opportunity, to talk to a lot of students about the importance of that. And one example I wanted to give, it was on my heart to say, because kids have always spoken so highly of like Kevin Gregory. And I know we can talk about hundreds and hundreds of folks who serve as mentors, but someone who started this hire program and not only provided mentorship and guidance and employment, but really connecting students with mentors that kind of help support them and guide them. And I'm gonna tell you, a lot of those students are in college now, and those types of relationships have been absolutely critical. And these are typically mentors that are not there for kids for one time. They follow kids throughout their educational path. I mean, they're there as adults where they're still going back, as Mr. Gonzalez had mentioned, having conversations with those folks. And I think I've been blessed not having a father, but there have been people throughout my life who have always stepped up. I just called an old friend of mine that I grew up with in Detroit. And we moved around a lot, I'll be honest with you, because we just didn't have a lot. But there were always some key people that seemed to step up. And there was one neighbor, Mr. Davenport, who taught me how to swim. I mean, he took time out of his day to take me swimming with his kids, and taught me things of that nature, and just kind of served as an inspiration that as I moved through. And in college, I had mentors. When I began teaching, I had mentors. And as a father, there are a lot of individuals I look up to who really model, fatherhood and being just a good human being. And so I think that mentorship is probably one of the most critical things that people can do. So anyone who is watching this through Facebook, anyone who has an opportunity to serve as a mentor or engage with a child, to serve as that example, I think to me, I think it's one of the most rewarding things that you can do. I think that's why I enjoy and I'm so passionate about teaching and education, having an opportunity to be a blessing and to influence someone. Clint, I don't know if there's any better feeling out there. I honestly, sometimes I sit back, I'm like, I can't believe I get paid to do this job. Like, this is the most rewarding job ever. Like, it is amazing feeling. And there are hundreds of students I still stay in touch with. I mean, they're just like, and so I hope in some ways I get to serve as a mentor for them and as someone who motivates them and inspires them. I think mentors are the most critical, one of the most critical things that we can do. And so, yes, mentors have been very important for me. And for anyone who gets the opportunity to be a blessing and serve as a mentor, I really think they should engage in it. And as Mr. Gonzalez said, I think the more programs we can have where we can have more individuals serve as mentors, I think we should try and create those kind of programs within our community.
Thank you so much. I do have a final question I wanted to ask our panelists today. We'll start with Mr. Scott. I wanted to ask you, what is your greatest joy of being a father, and what is the biggest challenge that you have?
My greatest joy of being a father is actually being a father, because I had damaged chromosomes. I didn't know it. Working in the tunnels in New York, benzene had gotten to my bone marrow and damaged my chromosomes. And so, I think my wife doesn't mind me saying this, but because my chromosomes were damaged, we had some miscarriages, and they were checking her and not me. And I had the damaged chromosomes. But God promised me a son. And even with damaged chromosomes, God allowed me to have a miracle son. This man sitting right here is a miracle from damaged chromosomes. The chromosomes did not, and to just in my mind, God took the damaged chromosomes out, allowed my son to be born, and put him back, because probably about 11 years later, the chromosomes turned into full-blown leukemia. And so I had to have a bone marrow transplant, and I had a stroke, subdural hematoma, had a craniotomy, heart damage, lung damage, lost 50% of my kidneys, but I'm still here. And so I just thank God for giving Brian Pruitt a shout out, allowing me to be a mentor for Power of Dad for probably 6 years now. The boys at Arthur Hill and Willie Thompson, and it's just a blessing. But one of the harder things is for me was to not try to make my son be a carbon copy of me. That was the hardest thing, because I knew I was good at what I did, and I just wanted him to do the things that I did. But it was so that was hard for me to say, okay, I'm going to listen to Proverbs and train up him to be the person he should be, not the person that I want him to be. So that was kind of hard. He's unique in different ways than I am. And so I had to let go of what I thought and allow him to become the person that he is today.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Let's go to Marquine.
So one of my greatest joys is seeing the evolution of my children. So my son has an underdeveloped optic nerve, and so his eyesight, his perception looking down is much different than his perception looking up. And so at one point in time, he was literally afraid to walk past a crack in a cement. Right, so you have those cement squares that are separated by the dividers. So at one point he was afraid to walk past that divider, right? And so over time I would, nudging over the crack just to show him that, there was nothing to be afraid about. And so now to this day, now he's jumping off of couches, he's running and running up and down the stairs and stuff like that. And to see that process, to see him to go from this little boy who was scared to walk past dividers in the cement, now to a little boy who's jumping off of everything. You know what I mean? And it's the same, not the same thing, but just that same joy with my daughter. You know what I mean? I brought her into this house in a car seat, holding her up. I actually had a man who stopped me one day in my apartment complex and he said to me, "Bro, I remember when you were carrying her in the car seat, and now she's walking. Now she's talking." And just to see that process of them growing up into a little boy and a little girl, and to develop their own personality and their own way of being, is just the greatest joy that I have. And so the greatest challenge in itself is fatherhood. Fatherhood can be challenging because, like Mr. Scott said, I too wanted especially my son, to be a carbon copy of myself. You know what I mean? And so I had to get out of my way to allow him and to allow God to make him who, you know, he was set out to be. You know what I mean? And then my son being autistic, that was definitely something that was difficult on me. So, and then with my daughter, I come from a household where primarily I was raised with all boys. And so that's what I know, you know what I mean? To kind of be like this tough guy, you know what I mean? And so it was different when I had my daughter, you know what I mean? There were some times where I would yell at her and it would just break her little heart, you know what I mean? And sometimes my wife would pull me to the side and say, listen, you know, you gotta come a little softer with her, you know what I mean? And so that was something that, you know, I'm just like Mr. Dr. Foley said, you learning as time goes on. You're learning, you know what I mean? And so don't be afraid of fatherhood from the aspect of not knowing, you know, what to do. You're gonna learn over time. Each one of my children are different, not just from boy to girl, but personality. They're much different.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Marquine. Let's go to Dr. Foley.
For me, Clint, I would have to say the greatest joy for me is the experience of parenting. That engagement. I don't know if I should say this live because I don't know if this is legal or not. Like with my kids, we've been out driving around, you know, practicing, you know, in empty parking lot. But that whole just the experience of doing those types of activities, helping them grow, just knowing that you're a part of developing this human being. Like I don't know if there's anything greater. So I think that the overall just parental engagement, just spending that time nurturing, just being a parent. And I think one of the challenges to that, especially early on for me, was balancing the work-life balance. You know, I'll be honest with you, when they were younger, I was putting in a lot of time at work, like because I really enjoy my work, and so I was having a harder time just finding that balance. You know, doing 200% at work and coming home and maybe giving 50%. And so over time, I've really been able to find a really good balance where I can give work 100% and give my kids 100%. You know, and so I think finding that work-life balance had been a challenge for me overall. It may be a challenge for many, but I think just the overall experience of parental engagement, just helping your kids grow and develop, just teaching them things, being that teacher, being that mentor, I think is really, really, that is the joy for me. And, you know, I hope that my children are able to grow up to be men and they use the type of, you know, father I was, the examples, and they do those types of things with their kids. You know, I think that's really, really important. So that's the joy for me is parenting. And the challenge had always been that work-life balance, but that's something that over time I've gotten better with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Foley. Let's go to Adam. Just briefly, could you tell us your greatest challenge and your greatest joy?
You know, being what I've been through, almost losing my life by getting struck by that car and learning things as I go, like the other gentleman we're talking about. You don't, when you have a child, it doesn't come with a manual. There's no instructions. You kind of, you get help, you know, from your moms, your dads, your uncles, your aunts, cousins that had kids. Well, this is what you do, this and that. My biggest joy was when my son Michael came out and told me he was gay. He was afraid for his life because, you know, here I am. He knew all the stories about me. I used to fight a lot growing up and aggressive, playing sports, the Marine. And we all knew he was gay. You know, we were just waiting for him to one day to come out and say it. And he's like, you know, he goes, "You're not mad?" I'm like, "Michael, you're my son. You're my son. We knew you were gay. I mean, it's not a big secret. You're my son. I'm gonna love you no matter what." So I was asked by Mr. My buddy Leo Romo if I could speak at one of their gay lesbian little meetings they had, and I brought it up, how my lifestyle was before the car accident, after the car accident. And I'm a huge advocate for our gay and lesbian friends. And so another one of my joys is seeing all my boys becoming men, how can I say this? They're their own man. They have all my characteristics, but they're all totally different. My son Elias, he loves going up north, hiking, getting off the grid. I mean, I told him, if we have a zombie apocalypse, I'm coming with you, because he knows how to live off the land. My son Adam, he's a workout fanatic. He's military. My son Anthony, he's a gamer. They have their own children, and they're raising them with so much love. It's beautiful to see this, because you see stories, horror stories, where some parents are neglecting or abusing their kids, and my kids are loving their children, raising them through God, through Christ, with values, manners. It's a beautiful thing to see that, knowing that came from me. Well, me and the mom, so I can't take all the credit, but yeah, just seeing them become who they are, beautiful. I'm happy.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. And I want to say thank you again to each of our panelists for joining us today. This is a powerful conversation. I loved it. I feel we could go on even longer. But for the sake of time, I just want to say thank you guys so much. I've learned a great deal on this call today, and I'm going to work to elevate all of these issues that we've spoke about today. So thank you so much to our panel. For more information, you can go to clintbryant.com, or you can text Clint to 22999. There you can connect with me and find more information and some details about our policy agenda, order yard signs, events, and stay up to date with what's going on with our campaign. And remember, you can always connect with me on every social media platform at Clint Bryant MI. I did want to just put a quick plug in. We do have a Pride Roundtable and some very special guests that will be joining us for a happy hour on Wednesday, June 24th. So please stay tuned to that. And yes, if you would like a yard sign or you want to connect with me, go ahead and visit our website, clintbryant.com. You can text me. But thank you all so much for joining me today for Coffee with Clint, a Father's Day Roundtable. And thank you so much to the incredible dads in our community. Have a great weekend, and I will see you soon.